MIT Group of Academic and Research Institutions announces admission in engineering and management with 40 years in technical education, over 12,000 plus students, best placement cell and best infrastructure. Beed Bypass, Aurangabad.
Thanks. Namaskar and good morning to all the participants, invited guests, speakers and the dignitaries. Maharashtra Institute of Technology, Aurangabad welcomes you all for the inaugural function of International Technical Symposium on Opportunities and Challenges in Industry 4.0. This symposium is jointly organized by Maharashtra Institute of Technology's Industry Cell and Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering. We have amongst us Mr. Suresh Chakravar, Vice President Findability Sciences, Industry Expert Mr. Tasawwur Ali, Principal Dr. Santosh Bhosle Sir, Dr. Prashant Ambad, IQAC Coordinator and Coordinator of Industry Cell, Dr. Ganesh Sable, Head Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering. I welcome you all. The world today is going through a tough phase, and life beyond this COVID-19, along with human race and industry, is also going to encounter exorbitant change. The digitization across industries are taking shape at a striking pace, and this has opened new opportunities for Industry 4.0 to reflect great trend for automation. This automation by Industry 4.0 could be reflected in the areas of smart manufacturing, smart factory, dark factories, and industry Internet of Things. So, through the 3 days of symposium, the invited experts and the panelists are going to row us through the challenges, opportunities that the Industry 4.0 is going to uncover. To set up the tone for this upcoming 3 days of the symposium, may I now request Principal Dr. Santosh Bhosle Sir to present the welcome address and the preamble for the symposium. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Priti Madam. So, good morning, one and all, distinguished speakers and participants. I, Dr. Santosh Bhosle, Principal, Maharashtra Institute of Technology, Aurangabad, welcomes you to this international symposium on opportunities and challenges in Industry 4.0. Let me take this opportunity to introduce our institute first. Gramodyogik Shikshan Mandal, Aurangabad is a parent trust established in the year 1975, which has established more than 20 institutes in Maharashtra and in other states as well. Maharashtra Institute of Technology, Aurangabad is one of them, which is popularly known as MIT Aurangabad. The institute is permanently affiliated to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University and is approved by All India Council for Technical Education and Directorate of Technical Education, Maharashtra. Institute is also accredited with Grade A by National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAAC. It is also recognized as Science and Industrial Research Organization, that is CIRO, by Department of Science and Industrial Research, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. MIT is also empaneled as Unnat Maharashtra Abhiyan and Unnat Bharat Abhiyan Institute by Government of Maharashtra and Government of India, respectively. It is also empaneled as Energy Service Company approved by Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Power, Government of India. MIT has set up few Center of Excellences in the fields such as Mechatronics, Automation, Center for Analytical Research and Studies, and MC, that is Industry Center for Polymer Science and Technology. MIT has got strong alumni base all over the world and tied with more than 300 companies. Those provide in-plant training and placements to our students every year. Because of these efforts, MIT has been ranked 87th recently by the survey conducted by Outlook magazine for India's top 100 engineering institutes. Now, with this brief introduction of my institute, let me talk about this symposium. As all of us know that Industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution, encompasses combination of traditional manufacturing and industrial platforms and practices with the latest smart technology. The primary focus is on the use of large-scale machine-to-machine communication and also use of Internet of Things to provide increased automation, improved communication, and self-monitoring, as well as smart machines that can analyze and diagnose issues without the need of human intervention. Looking at the current scenario, this is a great need to go for such kind of revolution, and hence we thought of having this symposium on Industry 4.0 so that more and more students and research scholars get attracted to the work in this field. There are many important components of Industry 4.0, as all of us know, like mobile devices, IoT platforms, human-machine interfaces, 3D printing, smart sensors, big data analytics, cyber-physical systems, and many more. So as to cover most of these components and enlighten us with their knowledge and expertise, we have with us 6 distinguished speakers who will be talking on various aspects of opportunities and challenges in Industry 4.0. These speakers are Mr. Suresh Shakkarwar, who is Executive Vice President of Findability Sciences, who will be talking on role of artificial intelligence in Industry 4.0. Professor Asim Tiwari, Professor of IIT Bombay, he will be talking on smart manufacturing. Professor Luigi, he will be talking on neurons, the emergence of simplicity. Then we also have Professor Makarand Kulkarni, who is professor in IIT Bombay, who will be talking on maintenance aspects pertaining to Industry 4.0. We also have Dr. Thomas from Germany. He will be talking on Industry 4.0. Then Kiran Nataraj, CEO, Entry Technologies. He'll be talking on technology skills for IoT. So with these experts in the field, I'm sure that we all will be enlightened because of their experiences. At the end, I would like to thank all the speakers and panelists for accepting our invitation to be part of this international symposium on Industry 4.0. I'm sure that all the participants will get enriched through the deliberations that will take place in these 3 days. For the information of all, let me tell you that we were expecting 500 participants for this symposium. However, we got tremendous response and more than 1,500 participants are participating in this symposium, out of which students are 30%, industry persons are 4%, research scholars are 4%, and faculty members are 60%. And there are participants from other countries as well, like US, Oman, Mexico, Bhutan, Poland, and of course from India. So without taking much time, I thank one and all the speakers as well as participants for making this symposium a grand success. I wish all the best. Thank you. Over to you, Preeti ma'am.
Thank you, sir. We have amongst us Mr. Tasawwur Ali, industry expert from GIZ. GIZ is a German development agency which is presently working for over 400 projects in Aurangabad and other regions of Maharashtra, which involves industry institute interaction to come up with project development in collaboration with academia. Now, may I invite Mr. Tasawwur Ali to address the participants, please. Over to Tasawwur Ali, sir, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir, yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, so first let me congratulate MIT team actually for organizing such a good event actually in this kind of situation actually where everyone has got stuck at home. And I also welcome all the participants who have been participating in this digital technical symposium on Industry 4.0. So I'll just brief you about the GIZ work, what we are doing and why I'm here actually. So GIZ has a project called Promotion of Innovation in MSME sector actually. So if you already know MSMEs, especially Indian MSMEs are not very innovative actually, and they are not able to compete with the other global industries. So if you see the today scenario like COVID-19 scenario, where we need the rapid production of the mask and the PPE kit and a lot of so many things. So this kind of technology if our SME have actually, so we would not be dependent on the other countries like China or Germany. So this project actually this work on how to promote this innovation in the MSME so that they can become the self-sustainable and their growth also get tremendously high in the couple of years. And for this, how we could actually promote the innovation in MSME, there is only one thing which could help it actually, and that is the industry academia collaboration. because if you see most of the MSMEs, Indian MSMEs, they don't have the R&D infrastructure, and the R&D infrastructure are available in our universities, in our colleges actually. So if that infrastructure can be utilized, if the knowledge available with the academia, with the professor, expert people actually, if that knowledge can be utilized in collaboration with the MSME, so a lot of new innovation can happen, and we would not depend on the other countries to have the new technology, actually new research thing. So our MSME would themselves would be become at a global player. So that is the main objective of this MSME innovation project. So under this project, we have been working in Aurangabad since last 4 years, in Pune, Nasik, and Nagpur as well in Maharashtra, and other part of the country. So our main role is that to identify the issue with the MSME sector and involve the academia to solve that those problems by developing some innovative and low cost solution. So under this year, I think more than 250 projects currently going on. And we are also supporting the institute to set up the industry cell. Actually, the industry cell at a platform where industry can come forward. They can also tell you ki this is our problem, can you develop some solution of this problem, where you could also invite some industry expert, give the talk what is happening in the industry, what student has to learn to actually to develop something for the industries, or particularly for the MSMEs. So I'm very happy to say this. As of now, we have set up the 10 industry cell in Aurangabad itself. MIT is one of them actually. So this symposium also, the industry cell coordinator, Dr. Ambat sir, they're also supporting this webinar. And through this industry cell, we have also invited some industry expert, like the CEO of Entrib also is joining through that industry cell. And I also requested one of the very eminent professor in the field of Industry 4.0, Mr. Dr. Thomas Uzlander from Fraunhofer, Germany. So I think those sessions would be very helpful to understand what industry are doing in terms of the Industry 4.0 research area actually, and that would also help the academia to understand in which direction we need to go actually, in which direction we need to develop our R&D infrastructure, or in which direction we need to actually guide the student to take the new projects in the Industry 4.0 area. So that's a brief from my side, and I wish best of luck to all the participants of this technical symposium, and I hope you would have a very good learning 3 days for this symposium. And I think the knowledge which would be shared by the expert, it would enrich your experience. Like that would be grateful for all the participants. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Here we approach to the end of inaugural ceremony of International Symposium on Opportunities and Challenges of Industry 4.0. At the outset, I would like to thank everyone for joining us for the inaugural function, expressing my gratitude to the eminent speakers for sparing time for this workshop, management of MIT for encouragement and for organizing such an event. I also thank Dr. Santosh Bhosle sir, principal and convener of the symposium, for being a cornerstone all throughout. Also to the event coordinators, Dr. Prashant Ambat, coordinator IQAC and coordinator of Industry Cell at MIT, Dr. Ganesh Sable, head Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, for their continuous guidance. I also thank to the organizing team members who brought us all together on this virtual platform. And lastly, to the enthusiastic participants for coming out and expressing their interest in attending the symposium and for their presence. We wish for fruitful interaction throughout the days of the symposium and hope that the session would uncover possibilities and opportunities in the area of Industry 4.0. Thank you all. The next session is going to follow shortly, but before that, there are a few guidelines for the participants. The first guideline is all are requested to attend all the sessions. GoToWebinar has a built-in feature to record attendance. Along with that, we are also going to share a Google link to record the attendance. This Google link will be active for 20 minutes and it will be shared on the Telegram group. So participants, please take care that you mark attendance in this attendance sheet. And this attendance sheet will be active only for 20 minutes. The second guideline which the participants must follow is Based on the contents of each session, a short quiz along with the feedback form will be shared to you at the end of each session. And the performance in quiz has to satisfy at least 40% marks. For each of the quiz, you have to attain at least 40% of the marks. Also, the third guideline is for asking any questions or queries in each of the session, there will be a separate Google form link that will be shared on the Telegram group. So all the participants are requested to raise the questions on those shared links. So whatever questions you have, you can post them on the Google link that will be shared on Telegram group. So these are the guidelines which the participant must follow. Also, the quiz and the feedback form will be active till 6 p.m. on that day. So if feedback form and quiz are for day 1, they will be active till day 1 at 6 p.m. So that is all for the guidelines. Now let us gear up and move to the first session of day 1. So please join me in welcoming our eminent speaker for the session, Mr. Suresh Chakravar sir, the Executive Vice President and Head of Products at Findability Sciences. Findability Sciences is a leading big data, cognitive and AI solution provider company. Mr. Chakravar has handled wide spectrum of roles in renowned organizations and handled a variety of responsibilities. At the inception of his career, he was associated with the Tata Group. He has over 16 years of teaching experience. He has been manager systems at BCL Springs, the Bombay Burma Trading Corporation Limited. And Chakravar sir has also been division head at Ramco Systems. So on behalf of MIT, I welcome you, sir. May I now request Mr. Suresh Chakravar sir to take the charge of session. The topic of the session is Role of Artificial Intelligence in Industry 4.0. Also, during the session, you can post your questions on the question link provided on the Telegram group. So all the participants are requested to post their questions over there. So now I request Mr. Suresh Chakravar sir to take the charge of the session. Over to you, sir.
So good morning to all the participants. At the outset, I thank MIT and the organizers of this international symposium for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on this uh, subject of artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0. I also wish a very best for the organizers for conduct of this symposium. So this currently all of us are going through a very rough period. All of us are going through something which we have never experienced in our life. Neither the world has experienced over more than 100 years. The modern world has never experienced anything that we are experiencing currently because of this COVID-19 pandemic. But every adversary gives you some opportunity. So every black cloud will have a silver lining. Similar, I mean, not, we cannot call it as similar, but some kind of a rough weather the business and industry has faced in the year 2008, when there was a financial crisis and world over people experienced the heat of that financial crisis. The good part of that was like many of the organizations after that crisis, financial crisis, they became very serious about their business, digital transformation of their business. So Industry 4.0 is nothing but kind of a digital transformation of the business. So I think this COVID-19 will also make many more people, motivate many more people to look at their business in a different perspective, and they can charter the path of digital transformation of their business through Industry 4.0. So let me take this opportunity to introduce my organization. So, Fundability Sciences is an organization which has been uh, in operation for last 10 years. We work in the field of big data, artificial intelligence, cognitive intelligence. In this area, we develop technology, and we cater to our customers, which are mainly in United States and Japan. So we are a SoftBank Corporate's portfolio company, and we have also formed a joint venture with SoftBank in Japan called as FSKK. The picture that you are seeing is about the SoftBank's founder chairman Masayoshi Son, who is presenting, and you can see under the head of AI, you can see Fundability Sciences there. So we are an IBM partner and part of advisory board of IBM Watson. We have been associated with IBM right from inception of Watson technology. Then we have invested in some company called WorkDone, which is a work heuristic process automation platform. And also we have formed one joint venture with Qlytics as Qlytics AI India Private Limited, and jointly we are offering enterprise AI development platform. We work out of Boston, which is our global head office headquarters. Then we have our presence in Toronto. Tokyo, we have our joint venture company. And in India, we work out of Mumbai and Aurangabad. So coming to today's subject of the role of artificial intelligence in Industry 4.0. So let us have one short overview of what artificial intelligence means to business. Okay. So artificial intelligence is the ability of a machine to perform cognitive functions we generally associate with human minds, such as perceiving, reasoning, learning, and problem solving. Okay. And this artificial intelligence can be broadly classified as various, which can be classified into various, you can say, fields. Like one is robotics, another could be autonomous vehicles, third could be computer vision, fourth could be natural language processing, fifth could be machine learning. Okay, so now this is a business classification, not academic classification. So some is, a part of it is based on applications, part of it is based on technology, but computer vision, natural language processing, and machine learning, these three are largely used in business applications, business functions, and robotics and autonomous vehicles. These rather robotics mainly is part of industrial automation. Autonomous vehicles is part of a mobility solution. So what exactly robotics means? Robotics is like design, construction, and use of machines to perform tasks mimicking human motions and intelligence. So like technical definition of a robo is something like it is a multifunctional programmable manipulator which can move parts or tools through variable programmed motions. Okay, but that is I mean part of a definition which is specific to its utilization or its use, its application in the industrial ecosystem. Okay, but beyond that also there are few things which can be expressed in this simple sentence. Okay, then autonomous vehicle is something which a vehicle that can sense its environment, so it becomes aware of its environment. So environment awareness is the essential characteristic of autonomous vehicle, and then responding to it. So identifying the environment, becoming aware of it, and then responding to it so that it can move safely with little or no human input, without human intervention or with a little human intervention, which can move. Then computer vision is something which is related to automated extraction of information from images as well as from videos, and which can identify the what is the object. It can find out different objects, segment it, right? Detect the object, identify. I mean, what you can say is different objects within that frame. Then you can recognize it. Then it can detect what is that object. Okay, and in video, it can relate one object across multiple frames. Okay, so this is all computer vision, and then this can be utilized in many applications, also including manufacturing. Then natural language processing is about the language. So like the basic difference between man and other animals, the basic difference why man is intelligent compared to all other animals, that is contributed only to language. Language is something which is not not I mean all other except humans, nobody else is capable of or having that faculty of language, no other animal. And that is the reason man has become so much intelligent, because because of language, the knowledge gets transferred from generations to generations, and because of that language, knowledge gets stored, knowledge gets recorded, information gets recorded, and the intelligence of the society improves. So this natural language processing is about interaction between computers and human languages. So how a computer program can identify the language, the words, the sentences, the tones, okay, the emotions in that, the keywords in that, right? And how humans and computers can interact using natural language. Okay, so that is a part of artificial intelligence. So this NLP then may have various application areas or various classification of NLP, you can say, based on technology as well as applications. Like based on text analytics, like there can be sentiments, tone, entity, keywords, summarization, personality insights. All these can be part of text analytics under NLP. Then there could be chatbots, like which can be used for customer service or internal IT support, or I mean, a virtual support agent who is available 24/7, okay, which can be used for multiple business applications, right? Then there is voice bot, which is similar to chatbot, but where you are not typing, but you are speaking, you are talking to the bot, and the bot is also talking to you, just like Siri or Alexa, okay? Then there could be email bot, which can understand the email, which can process the email, and then it can respond to that email automatically. Okay, so that autonomous email handling by computers, artificial intelligence. So these are different kinds of NLP. Okay, and then next type of AI is machine learning algorithms. Now, these machine learning algorithms, like what it does is it detects the patterns in the data which is available, and then from that patterns it creates models to make predictions. Okay, then it can make recommendations from the data, and then it can respond to the new data, it can handle the unknown data. Okay, because it has made the models, it has studied or detected the patterns in the data, but the new data which comes in, which is not part of that, but still it can handle it. So that is the strength of machine learning algorithms. Okay, And the effect of that is like we improve our efficacy of business processes. So the common ML applications across business scenarios are something like kind of scenarios would be there, like what happened. Okay. So this is kind of descriptive scenario, kind of a post-mortem scenario, like so everything has happened and post that you are trying to understand what has happened. Okay. So that you want to get more insights out of it, but you cannot change it, or you cannot make any attempt to change it or avoid it or stop it, because it has already happened. Another scenario is what will happen. Okay, so this is forward looking in the future. Okay, so this is a predictive scenario. Third scenario is what to do, like like this can happen. So if this can happen, what can I do to stop it or avoid it, or to decelerate it or to accelerate it. Okay, so that is called the prescriptive kind of a scenario, right? So this predictive and prescriptive, these two types of scenarios are generally the focus of AI applications, because in descriptive there is nothing to do, because it is, I mean, it has happened. Okay, it's not forward looking. Okay, then in the machine learning there can be different categories. One is supervised, okay, another is unsupervised, and third is reinforcement. So in case of supervised, what it does is like it knows that this is the output input data and this is the output of that. The relationship between input and output is to be identified, the pattern, the generalized understanding of that data, that the generalized relationship between input and input, that input and output, that is to be identified. So supervised learning learns that understanding, learns that relationship from the data. There is another scenario which is unsupervised, where there is just input data but there is no output known. Okay, so in that scenario you do not have input output known, so you do not have input output relationship, but you need to identify the distinct kinds of data available in that. Like what are different patterns available, even though there is no output available. Okay, so that kind of processing, or that kind of learning is like unsupervised learning. And third is reinforcement learning, where generally you will not have enough data to learn. So the data keeps coming and you also keep learning. Okay, so that is reinforced learning, wherein the machine is learning through its action. So when it is right, it gets reward, and when it is wrong, it gets penalty. So in this way, so these are the different kinds of machine learnings in business applications which are used. Okay, but more of business applications use supervised and unsupervised learnings, and reinforcement learnings are used only in those specific scenarios where the data is getting generated or data is not available and getting generated as you go, right? So the next is like the supervised learning has different very common popular algorithms like linear regression, logistic regression, naive Bayes, decision tree, okay, linear or quadratic discriminant, or support vector machines, random forest, or AdaBoost, or gradient boost trees, or neural networks. So these are commonly used algorithms in case of supervised learning for business applications. Similarly, for unsupervised, there are some popular algorithms like k-means clustering, Gaussian mixture model, hierarchical clustering, or recommender system. Okay, so these are popularly used across business applications, right? Then there is a deep learning. Now, this deep learning is the artificial neural network where there are lot of hidden layers are available, and then these hidden layers, I mean multiple hidden layers, are processing the data to learn the pattern in the data which is available, right? So this is trying to mimic the way the our human brain works. It tries to mimic that, how human brain tries to learn. It tries to mimic that. Okay, and deep learning has a lot of applications, are mainly used in processing of unstructured data like language data or image data or video data or audio data like that. Okay, so this is complex and very sophisticated kind of a learning mechanism. Okay, so there are different types of neural nets. One is a convolutional neural net and another is a recurrent neural net, right? And they both have their strengths and weaknesses, and they are used in various business applications. Okay, so with this background, let us come to, let's also have some overview of Industry 4.0, so that then we can relate artificial intelligence, role of artificial intelligence into Industry 4.0. So basically, Industry 4.0 is digital transformation of manufacturing industries. Okay, so so what it is like? So it started somewhere around 2011 or 12 somewhere, when the Germans came out with this idea or the concept or their thought about how they can modernize manufacturing industries and the related businesses. So it is not just limited to the manufacturing plant or the machines, but it is applicable to the entire manufacturing value chain. Okay. So Industry 4.0 is a state in which manufacturing systems and the objects they create, that means whatever they manufacture, service or product, they're not simply connected, drawing physical information into the digital realm. That means the physical to digital transformation. Okay, but also communicate, analyze, and use that information to drive further intelligent action back in the physical world. So physical to digital to physical transitions happen of the information and the process and the things, the physical products which are involved in this process. Okay, but what is, going ahead or going more into what Industry 4.0 means. Okay, that it connects embedded system production technology. That means the production systems which are traditionally having their control systems embedded into itself. Okay, those technologies and smart production processes to pave the way to new technological age, which will radically transform industry and production value chain and business models. So it is talking about the objective, or it's talking about the new business models and having its impact across the entire production value chain, including all the processes in the value chain. Now the value chain starts with the product ideation, product development, product engineering, okay, prototyping, product release, manufacturing, sales, support, right? It's logistics, it's planning, right? And then aftermarket, the support to the people who have bought it. So everything, every process, every step, that is a part of a production or manufacturing value chain, and that is a part of the business model. So it talks about that value chain and business model and how the transformation because of digital technologies, using digital technologies and changing the mentality or the thought. Okay, how this can be transformed. Okay, the uh, right. So one uh, very good sentence I can quote here. This is by Gene Ross, Principal Research Scientist for MIT Center for Innovation System Research, who wrote the MIT Sloan Management Review in about this, and who is the authority on digital transformation, is like a digital transformation involves rethinking the company's value proposition, not just its operation, right? So this tells a lot about what exactly, or how wide, or how uh, mm, I mean, it is not just limited to the operations or processes or shop floor, but its value proposition of the entire business. And this value proposition of business is keeping the customer in focus. So customer centric thought, how you will transform your business so that your customer is at the center of your focus, and you are eliminating all the inefficiencies from your all the processes, and how you can make it connected, integrated, and more efficient. So that is the spirit of industry 4.0. Okay, so how we have come to this stage, like there are four revolutions are considered, industrial revolutions are considered. Like the first, when industry started, it is called as industry 1.0. That is in something like late 1700, that 18th century. Okay, so introduction of power loom in 1784, right? That is mechanization with the power of steam engine and water, hydraulic power. Using that, the 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 production started, the machine started. First, it started with the power looms in 1784. That is considered as first industrial revolution. Second industrial revolution is because of electricity. So when electricity came and the thought of assembly line came, so introduction of assembly line in 1870, and use of electricity, electrification drives mass production, right? So around 100 years have gone, 1784 and then 1870. Okay, so then here the first assembly line was built in a slaughterhouse, and then in Ford companies assembly line of motor vehicle and all that. That is a part of industry 2.0, second revolution. The third revolution came because of computers, microprocessors, PLCs, electronic controls, right? And because of all these, that is the first introduction of PLC in 1969. So again, after 700 years, 1969, there was a first introduction of PLC, and then this automatically controlled machines, CNCs, automations, robots, industrial robots, all that started. Programmable devices, programmable machines, all that started from 1969. That is considered as Industry 3.0. And the fourth revolution, which started somewhere in 2000, I mean, it was initiated in 2001 with the name of Industry 4.0, but it has not started in 2011 with a lot of technologies and all. They started quite early. Okay, so but but the Industry 4.0 has been identified as a fourth revolution with initiation of this word in 2011. So this is based, I mean, this involves like autonomous systems, industrial IoT, artificial intelligence, horizontal and vertical integrations, and this all is happening on the basis of cyber physical production system, which means merging of real and virtual worlds. So this industrial 4.0 is like powered by the connectivity, internet, okay, because of which you are getting connectivity and artificial intelligence. Okay, so these are the connectivity and artificial intelligence. These two things you can say can be the spirit or crux of industrial 4.0 from technology point of view, right? So what are the main characters of industry 4.0, right? So there are four characters. One is vertical networking of smart production systems. So there are different small production systems, which are smart production systems within an organization, within a plant, and all these are connected to each other. So every machine is connected, every process is connected. So the entire plant is connected. So that is a vertical networking of smart production system. Second is horizontal integration via new generation of global value chain networks. So here the network now then expands beyond your own um, cocoon, and now multiple plants get connected, multiple organizations get connected. So your vendor supply chain gets connected, your forward network gets connected, your customers, warehouses, right up to the end user, it gets connected. So that is a horizontal integration, right? And third is through engineering across the entire value chain. So and across entire value, the focus is not just on the shop floor, the focus is on the entire value chain. So right from product inception, product ideation, up to the end of life of the product, the entire life cycle, and all the um, stakeholders which are getting involved within that, and all the organizations and all the processes across that. Okay, so all that will get transformed. Okay, that is a third character. And the fourth one is acceleration through exponential technology. That means use of all these new technologies like mobility, connectivity, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, big data, all these exponential technologies, use them and then achieve the business objective. Okay. So what are the pillars of Industry 4.0 then? Then the pillars are like operations technology, which means all your plant machines, CNCs, robots, manufacturing cells, your assembly lines, guided vehicles, all that, that is operations technology, plus information technology, the sensors, the connectivity, IIoT, right? The wearables, the uh, and smart devices, okay, human and computer interaction, all that, plus artificial intelligence. So these are the pillars of Industry 4.0. And what are various technologies which are involved in Industry 4.0? Like autonomous robots. So industrial robots were there in uh, Industry 3.0 also, but Industry 4.0, the autonomous robots are there. So like, what is the difference? Like in Industry 3.0, the robots were there to replace the mankind or manual labor. But in Industry 4.0, the robots are there to work with humans. So those are called as collaborative robotics. Like, okay, they will work with, or they will augment the abilities of humans. Okay, then simulation, integration networks, right? Industrial IoT and the cloud, additive manufacturing, augmented reality, big data and analytics, which involves artificial intelligence. And because of all these, because of it, all these are connected, it's a huge network across multiple organizations, across multiple geographies, across multiple locations, and therefore it becomes very important that cyber security becomes very important in this scenario. So these are various technologies which are involved in Industry 4.0. Okay. So this cyber physical system, how I mean it works, like the data from physical gets into digital. Then it is a digital data which gets processed in digital form, and then from digital again it gets transformed into physical nature. So what happens, like sensors and controls, variables, augmented reality, transactional data, all this is translating from physical systems into digital form. Okay, then in the digital form, there is this digital data gets aggregation, signal aggregation, data gets collected together. Then it gets used like optimization of something or prediction of something. Then this data is used to visualize and understand few things. And then there can be cognitive computing involved. So using this data. So this happens in the digital form of the data. And then from digital to physical, they again gets translated in the role. Something like examples could be like additive manufacturing. The design gets translated into something physical object, or robotics and intelligent machines. They are making a movement and doing something using this whatever prediction or AI or whatever optimization or whatever command it receives digitally. Okay, and advanced materials will be created out of that. So that is digital to physical. So it's a cyber physical production system which moves from, I mean, the transformation happens or translation happens from physical to digital and then digital to physical, and the all these entire business processes are being performed in a very orchestrated manner. Right? So a typical industry 4.0 environment is something like this. Okay, there is a cyber physical production system, or which we can call it as a smart factory. Okay, and then around that there could be multiple things which are interacting with that. Okay, so smart logistics, smart grid, smart mobility, smart buildings, smart homes, everything is smart. Everything is AI assisted. Everything is augmented and made intelligent using artificial intelligence. And then there is connectivity, connectivity of data, connectivity of machines, connectivity of services, connectivity of people. So this is a typical industry 4.0 environment. So connectivity, smartness, right? And CPPS, physical to digital, and then digital to physical transformation or translation of the information on physical objects. But all this is happening for some reason. So what is that? Like, what is the why? What is why this is to be done? There has to have certain business objectives. So what are those business objectives of Industry 4.0? Okay. So one we have seen also discussed also earlier also, like it's about the what value proposition we are offering or what value proposition you want to achieve. So but then you can then go into further details of that and how you will achieve that. So the objectives drill down to the next level would be productivity improvement, risk reduction, and incremental revenue and new revenue, right? So you want to improve your performance as well as you want to spread your business, right? So these are the business objectives of Industry 4.0. Okay. So how do you improve the productivity? Examples could be like maximizing your asset utilization or capital utilization, machines utilization, minimizing downtime, okay, driving labor efficiency, improving the efficiency of the people, then managing supply network synchronization and cost. Like you can, I mean, you if you can get whatever you want, okay, what you need at that specific time in that specific quantity at that specific place, if you can bring something in your supply network, then that will save huge amount of cost. Okay, and ensuring schedule and plan stability and accuracy. So whatever you are planning, scheduling, everything remains stable. There are no hiccups in that, there are no disturbances, there are no surprises in that, and that remains stable and accurate. So that these are some examples. There could be multiple things. Okay. So with this, you can improve the productivity. And in doing all these, there will be business processes involved, and all in that you will have a role of artificial intelligence, a very major role of artificial intelligence in achieving those targets. Then under risk reduction, you may have ensuring raw material price and availability. Like if there is a uncertainty about availability of raw material and price of raw material, sometimes happens like certain sorry, certain kind of a commodity will always have very, the price, prices keep fluctuating. Okay, lot of volatility, and availability is also not ensured. Maybe it is all 100% imported, and then you don't know whether it will available, not available, what would be price. Okay, so that is a big risk. So handling that, ensuring raw material price and availability, you know what at what price it will be available when, and that you can ensure, then that reduces your risk. Managing warranty and recalls effectively. So these are few examples. Like, so you are selling the product and there are certain warranty claims, and or you must be reading like some manufacturer, some car manufacturer has recalled all the vehicles because some part was defective and he wanted to replace that. So all that, how do you manage effectively? So that is because that costs money, and that costs huge money, and it's a loss. Okay, so this is about one more risk, that is mitigating geographic risk. Like in COVID-19, we have seen that because China was closed, there are a lot of people in the world who are dependent on Chinese manufacturers, because China is a very important part of their supply chain. And because it was all, and in the initial phase of COVID-19, it was only China which was not working, or which was locked down, and people, that was a geographic risk in that case. Okay, so and many people now are thinking whether they should depend only on one geography, or they should create their alternatives in other geographies also. So kind of risk reduction, mitigating the geographic risk. In the incremental revenue, the examples could be finding sources of growth for core business. Like, will there be new geography where you can go? Okay, or how you can grow your core business, how you can increase your market share, how you can go to the new territories. Then growing aftermarket revenue streams, like once you have sold the product, then there will be spares required, or there will be service required, or there could be repairs required. So that all that aftermarket, how you can grow that aftermarket revenue stream. And deepening customer understanding and insights, like understand the customer. Okay, how you can understand the customer more, how you can get more insights of the customer, because in digital transformation the focus is on customer centric. It is a focus is on customer. So if you understand the customer more, if you get more insights about your customer, you can decide how you are going to work, what you are going to offer, what will be your business model, right? That it will help you in that, and you can serve the people, serve your customers in a better way. So that will help you in incrementing your revenue. Strengthening customer integration and channels. How connected you are with your customers through various channels. How you can create multiple channels, maybe virtual channels, physical channels, both kinds of channels, and how you can integrate your customer with your customer, so that the customer is served and he stays satisfied, and then he remains loyal. So that will help you in increasing your revenue. So this is with reference to the revenue that the business is generating and how you can grow that. But there can be something which can be new, like greenfield, new revenue you can have. So creating new products and service offerings. Okay, so through that, how you can get new revenue streams, or expanding in new geographies, that can be new revenue, or identifying attractive merger and acquisition opportunities, like you acquire something and then inorganically grow your organization, or somebody acquires you and then you become a part of a larger organization, and then there could be synergy and more revenue, right? So these are the various business objectives, mainly focused on business growth and how you can improve your way you work, the efficient way you can work, and keeping the customer in focus. So this productivity improvement and risk reduction, this can be called as grouped as business operations, and this incremental revenue and new revenue can be grouped as business growth. So efficient business operations and increasing business growth, keeping your customer in focus, that could be the crux of business objective of Industry 4.0, or for that matter, any other business which wants to go through digital transformation. So what could be the transformational areas? In case of business growth, the transformational areas could be like products, customers, and engineering or engineers. These could be the areas where there could be a lot of transformations which will lead you to the desired business objectives, and where you can make use of all those technologies, including artificial intelligence. And another business operations area, there could be planning, factory, and support. These could be the other areas within the operations part, wherein there could be multiple opportunities where you can transform and you can grow. I mean, you can achieve your business objectives. So we can look into it and see where what kind of a specific artificial intelligence applications we can have. So let us dwell into these areas and what different things we can do in that. So like first is business growth products. Okay. So in this, creating smart products and services, that could be your transformational opportunity. Like creating intelligent products and services. Okay. Intelligent manufacturing processes, customized products, and combining data product services with your products, right? So these could be the opportunities. These could be the potential opportunities or actions you can take so that you can create smart products and services. So intelligent products, I mean, like you can take examples like we had many products earlier, okay, which were not intelligent, but then manufacturers added intelligence into that, and then many products now you can see they have intelligence embedded into that. So that way you can transform those products. Okay, right. So what are those potential product transformations you can see? Like making already existing products smarter. That could be one approach you can take, or offering the data generated from smart technologies as a product or service. Okay, this could be second kind of offering, or developing completely new products or services. Okay, so in case of you already have the existing products, you want to make them smarter. What you can do, like you can add sensors or connectivity so that it can improve the performance or the safety of that product. So people should get something out of it, some value, otherwise there is no fun. Okay, so by making this product smarter, either their performance should be improved or safety should be improved, there should be significant gain to the customer. Or you can enable mobile apps to improve the user experience. So user experience, user journey, how he is using, what is the life cycle of that application. So that is the focus. Okay, in like maybe 30-40 years back, once the product is sold to the customer, then the manufacturer, they never used to bother about what is happening with that product. But that is not the case now. Okay, with this connected world, you want to connect in this digital transformation. The businesses want to connect to the end user throughout the life cycle of the usage of that product with the customer. Okay, so customers user experience is very important. If this is not very pleasant, it is not convenient, if it is not very useful, then people would not like it and they will switch to the other products. Then advanced materials to improve performance. Maybe you can make it lighter, or maybe you can make it more stronger, like that. product innovations you can do. Offering the data generated from smart technologies as a product or service, like offer access to data or metadata generated through existing operations. Okay, like you have, I mean, in shop floors, you can have multiple machines, and that machine has a controller, and there are sensors. Even before this Industry 4.0, you have each machine having a lot of, I mean, sophisticated machines are there, very high end sophisticated machines are there, where there is very high end control systems are there, and a lot of sensors are there. So that sensor is generating some information, and that information is getting collected in that controller, but that is not accessible to the user. So here that machine manufacturer can transform his product to generate more info, to more revenue, or to generate more business. He can make that data available to the user. So that can be a new business avenue, new product, new offering, wherein you are providing the access to the data or metadata generated through the operation. Build and sell a platform on which to manage data from connected products enterprises. Now, earlier, if you remember, when the mobile phones were sold to people, only mobile phones were sold. But now it is not just mobile phone. If you buy Apple, then Apple iPhone, or if you buy Samsung phone, or if you buy Google's phone, right, Moto phone, then what happens is, when you then you get connected with their platform. Okay, then you get Apple ID, you get Samsung ID, you get connected with them. So they are not just selling the cell phone, but they have created a platform, and every cell phone user is connected with that platform and getting some benefit out of that, getting some value out of that platform. So, like, build and sell a platform on which manage data from connected products enterprises. Okay, that is example of that. Then developing completely new products, maybe develop cost effective mass customization, because of you can have a mass customized products. You are developed, or you are manufacturing a product which is customized for a specific customer, right? It is not kind of a mass produced same for everybody. Okay. Enable product innovations through advanced technologies and create new business models. Like these could be your potential product transformation. Okay. Now we can see some examples like smart product. How, like, we know, like, we have used few years back, before 2007, we were using this kind of a phone which was called as a feature phone, so which was doing nothing beyond making a phone call and receiving a phone call. But then this phone got transformed into a smartphone, which is not just a phone, but it has got so many capabilities. So it has got a camera, it is a Walkman, it is your video camera, it is your still camera, it is your Walkman, it is your diary, it is your alarm clock, it is your clock. So multiple features, multiple functions. It is connected internet, and it is connected, it can connect to internet. So huge transformation. So a feature phone and smartphone, like the way a product can be transformed, it can be made a smart product. Okay, can bring a innovation into the product. So this can be a great example for that. Then smart machine tool, like as a machine tool as a product, if you say, like one manufacturer has developed the machine, CNC machine spindle. Okay, wherein the spindle health system has been developed to eliminate unexpected downtime due to damaged spindles or spindle bearings. Okay, so this is embedded into that system. The artificial intelligence is embedded into the system so that it can identify, predict, it can look into the future and see, like, say after 4 days or after 5 days, this machine is going to fail, so that the manufacturer can the user of that machine can, without any production stoppage, or with the user, the manufacturer can plan the repairs of that, and then it brings a huge amount of value to the user of that machine. So the product that the particular manufacturer of that machine tool, he has enhanced that product by bringing in intelligence into the product, so that it becomes a better product, brings in a lot of value to the user of that product. So using artificial intelligence into it. Again, another example could be AI powered laser welding process. Sorry. Now, when performing laser welding, it has been observed by some organizations that whatever defects are occurring, though the root causes of that is heat input. So the heat input is not the right one which is required there. Then the parts are getting mismatched, that is a loading problem, okay? And nozzle deviation. Because of the nozzle deviation, the laser head of that nozzle, because of that, there are certain defects occurring in the welded parts, okay? So to counter this manually, it is not possible. So artificial intelligence is applied by the manufacturer of that product, so that this becomes a smart manufacturing process, right? So how it is done? It is done using a computer vision system, okay? So there are cameras and there is image processing capability. Those cameras can detect whether there is a mismatch, whether there is a wrong orientation of the nozzle, and there are photodiodes which can identify whether that heat is correct, optimum or not. And then this goes into the uh, um, in the system, where it creates the features out of it, the feature vector. I mean, from these all these parameters, the features are generated, the variables are generated, based on which the machine learning algorithm can be trained. So out of all these, the features are generated, the data is created which can go as input into the machine learning algorithm. Then it learns out of it, and then this trained model is used in the deployed as in the production, for the production usage of that technology, so that while this welding is happening, now it can sense through the input which is coming through the camera, through the input which is coming through the photodiode, and through whatever information is coming, from which whatever features are extracted, and that goes into that prediction engine. Then against the model which has been trained in the controller of that system, then against that model it predicts, like, this is going to fail, this is going to create a defect, and then accordingly the message can go to controller, and controller can then make modify the correct modifications. If the heat is more, it is reduced and it is made the optimum, or if the tilt is not correct, then it is adjusted. So that kind of a corrective action can be taken. So this is a simple example of AI powered laser welding process, which can be very intelligent manufacturing process, which can be applied as a part of your manufacturing process. Okay. Then example of custom creation of product, like manufacture of hearing aid shell. Now this hearing aid shell, which fits in the ear of a person who needs this hearing aid. Now, if this is manufactured as per the which suits a particular person, then what happens is it fits very well for him. If it is made in a generic form, if it is mass produced with the same shape, then everybody may not be comfortable with that. It may not fit rightly with each individual. So you have here opportunity to create a custom manufacturing of this. So you can apply the technology. You can create a 3D model of the person through the image scanning. Okay, you can make a use of cameras. You can create images, so that you can create the 3D model of that, and then using that 3D model and using additive manufacturing, it's very easily the custom made that hearing aid shell can be manufactured for a specific individual. So through using these technologies, these things are possible. Okay. Now, what are these transformational areas now? Okay. So we discussed about products. Let's discuss about customers in the business growth. So connecting and integrating in new ways to the customers is the mantra in the Industry 4.0 paradigm of working in this new era. Okay. So how it will happen? Like examples of that, like data and information gathered from intelligent products and services to better understand the customer. So the products which are sold, okay, those are connected to the platform, and the data is getting generated there, gathered there, and that is used to understand the customer better. Okay. Then customer experience through physical and cyber objects. Okay. And intelligent pricing models. So those could be different ways you can connect and integrate in a new way to the customers. Okay. Now intelligent pricing models, I mean, like there is something called as a surge pricing in Ola. Okay. So that is kind of, how intelligent it is and how helpful it is for customers and how happy customers are is a different issue. But intelligent pricing could be something like that. Okay. That could be one example of intelligent pricing model. Right. And as we discussed, like iPhones and Samsung and all, when they sell the cell phone, then you connect with their platform. So there the data is getting generated, data is getting collected. And using that data, there are issues of privacy encroachment, there are issues of data, personal data, there is GDPR regulation, all that is there. Okay. But this is with reference to the person's data. But if it is not a mobile, but it is a machine tool, and that machine tool is connected to the platform, and that data is getting generated, and then it is going into the platform, then that manufacturer can understand what is happening here, whether something is happening correctly or not, whether something is wrong, whether something is going to happen which is not good. Those things, that kind of a service the manufacturer can provide to the customers. Right. So what could be the potential customer transformations? Market and sell products and services more intelligently. Improve the aftermarket experience of the customers and optimize performance and distribution. So this is about the customers, right? Okay. So use data to drive customer intelligence. So the data that you are generating, use it to drive customer intelligence. Understand more about customers. Understand customers' need, predict customers' needs, all that you can do using the data. Develop intelligent pricing strategies based on inventory and customer data. So demand and supply, you have a clarity, right? Using that, you can create a intelligent pricing strategy. Now, intelligent pricing strategy doesn't just mean that how high, how large profits you can earn. The businesses are there for making profit, but whether to do profiteering, okay, in a very unethical way, that is not the point. Like when a car manufacturer offers a discount to the customers, like we see all these advertisement all over, all through 12 months, like always we see like buy this car, we are offering a discount of 20,000 on these, 50,000 on that, and like that. Okay. So now whether you should provide a discount of 5% or 4% or 4.2%, or 4.8% or 5%? How to decide? Okay. So if you give 20% discount, obviously your more cars will be sold, but you will not make money. If you give 0% discount, maybe your cars, less cars will be sold. Again, you will not make money. But what is that point, right? Which is that sweet spot. So where you can give the discount so that people can buy more. So people are also happy that they have got a discount. You're also happy because you have got more money. And that is a win-win situation, right? So how you can develop that intelligent pricing strategy, okay, based on the inventory, customer data, historical data, okay. So that can be one transformation where AI will be used largely or very effectively. Okay, use analytics to predict customers' needs. Like there can be predictive analytics using needing like simple like recommendation engine. Like when somebody buys these things, he will buy this also. So there is a probability. So then you can suggest him like, okay, you can buy this also. So what is to be suggested? What is to be recommended? Again, there could be predictive intelligence or analytics that can be used so that it makes, I mean, you are providing the, it's not just about making money, but you are, many a times people don't know, like when they buy A, they will need B also. So I mean, to use A effectively, if they have B, then it makes more sense, right? So selling the products and selling the services more intelligently so that customer is more satisfied and you also make money, so that there is a win-win situation. Then next is improve the aftermarket experience. Use data to track product condition and part and system failures to predict customer needs and maximize uptime. So if your machine tool is there and it is connected to a platform, and then that platform has analytics, it can take the data, it can understand, it may predict that the bearing is going to go after some time. Like we have seen that example of that CNC spindle, okay, which use artificial intelligence to predict whether the bearing will fail after some time. So that time the manufacturer can give alert to the customer like, your this machine may fail, this may happen, please check whether this is working correctly or not, or whether it needs something to be replaced. So that brings in huge amount of value to the customer. Enhance the user experience through sensor enabled apps and implement conversational AI based support systems. I mean, the support help desk of that organization, if it is totally human based, then 24 by 7, providing support 24 by 7, and every agent who can handle every kind of a query is quite expensive. Okay, you will need a lot of people, you will need a lot of training, you will need huge infrastructure, huge money required. So all that can be replaced if you have a conversational AI based support system. So that computer system can be trained. Once trained, there is no need for retraining. In case of humans, one agent leaves, new agent is recruited, again you have to go through that training cycle. So here that risk is not there, and everything can be trained in that conversation AI based support system, and it will be available 24 by 7. It can be configured in multiple languages, so you don't have to recruit people who know English, who know Japanese, who know Chinese, who knows, I mean, you need to recruit then multiple people. So all that becomes very, very, not only cost effective, it becomes very effective and very efficient for the customer, right? Then third is optimize performance and distribution. So it is about the distribution, like use data predictions to put the right product with the right dealer at the right time, so that customer will, there will not be a situation where there are products available which people don't need and the products are not available which people need. So that situation is a bad situation for both customer, the dealer, as well as for the manufacturer. So use data predictions to put, and if it is a connected enterprise, then it becomes easy to get the information quickly and then predict it based on that information, and then you can take the corrective action, or you can take the action so that this is going to this product is going to go out of stock after 4 days. So, and the logistic lead time is of 3 days. So maybe tomorrow, if you dispatch, by the time that product gets off the shelf, you can, you can replenish. There will be stock to replenish it. So that kind of a uh, prediction. So that kind of a business process is possible because of connected enterprises, as well as because of the availability of data and artificial intelligence algorithms which you can use. And then you are not unnecessarily keeping a lot of inventory, as well as people are getting what they need. So again, there is a win-win situation for both. Optimize distribution of products. Okay, like the where it should go, at what quantity, all the products, distribution of that. And remotely track usage performance of the product. When the product is connected to the platform, it becomes very easy to track the usage and performance of the product. If performance is not deteriorating, you can alert the user. So these could be the customer transformation, where you can bring more value to the customer, as well as you can get more money. You can get more money. So a large part of your sales, like marketing and sales, is through advertisement. Okay, and then I can when the advertisement is done, what happens is that creatives are created, the designs are created for advertisement campaign, and then these are analyzed for its efficacy before selection of final creative. Like the designers create 10 designs, and then out of all these 10, which is to be used. Okay, for that some experiment is done. Okay, some testing is done, and then, like, there is something called as the eye tracking device. So then some randomly some people are chosen, like 20, 25, 30 people are chosen, and using that they wear this eye tracking device, and then they look at the advertisement, and then how they are viewing that advertisement, how their attention travel is, what is first thing that they are getting attracted to, which part of the advertisement is getting the first attention. Okay, and then which part is seen, then which part is seen, like that. For those 25, 30 people, that information is gathered in that device. Then from that, it is decided which advertisement, which design is better, which is to be used. Okay, so like this is one advertisement which was published for L'Oreal in Facebook. Okay, and then this was another advertisement. Okay. Now these two, if you look at it, they look quite similar. Okay, but the response they received on Facebook, there was a huge difference. So what happened? So this image, it was posted on Facebook on 12th of February 2016. It got only 52 likes, whereas this particular design, this creative, which was posted on 13th February, got 9,100 likes. So why there is a huge difference? Okay, if you see the difference in these two, there is some difference. Okay, like this Valentine's Day be part of this sentence is removed here. The color of 50% is changed from blue to white. This February is added here. Okay, and which is in blue. The proportion of this model's face, that has changed. The orientation of these products is changed, and the list of these e-commerce partners, that is missing. So that is the difference. Okay, but and there is a huge difference in the response of the people. Now why this happens? Okay, because how people see it and how people perceive it. Based on that, the response gets generated, right? So I can show you one demo, okay, of this image, and then I can explain you through artificial intelligence how this can be explained. So businesses will use this kind of artificial intelligence to enhance their marketing uh, approach or enhance their marketing effectiveness. So this is one AI application I will launch. Okay. Can you see my screen wherein I've launched this application, Fundability Sciences TouchUp? Right. Okay. So I will log in into the system. This is the artificial intelligence based system which uses deep learning, and there are something like more than 40 algorithms of deep learning models, okay, and complex algorithms are there which can analyze and give us, instead of bringing people and asking them to wear the eye tracking mechanism device and then then ask them to see and analyze that data, instead of that you can use artificial intelligence to do that. So I will create one test campaign here. If it is taking more time because of my slow internet, then I will drop this and I'll continue with the presentation. Okay, it's taking a lot of time. My internet is slow. So I'll skip this demo and I will move ahead. Okay. So what happens is when it analyzes through this, what it gives you is pre-attention order. That means when subconsciously when person is seeing this, like then what part of this creative he is seeing. Okay. So in the first, which did not get a lot of response, the first attention was going to this part, second attention was going to this part of the e-commerce, third was going here, fourth was going here, and fifth was going here. So this was the journey of your pre-attention view of that. Okay, subconsciously when you are viewing it. So our subconscious mind gathers a very huge amount of information every second through our senses that goes to our midbrain, and then everything that it is gathered there does not go to your thinking brain, but it gets filtered there. Okay, so this filtration happens based on your beliefs, your patterns, your habits, your thinkings. Based on that, this filtering happens, and then a small summary of that, gist of that, that goes to your thinking brain. Okay, but when your midbrain receives this, that midbrain itself makes a decision about what is to be done about this. So your thinking brain does not make that decision. So the decision happens at the pre-attention phase only. So in first case, the call to action is what? Call to action is 50% off, so that people should do some take some action, right? So and here that call to action is, I mean, the attention to call to action was not I mean, it was not attracting attention of the people. So that's the reason this call to action was not getting attention in this, and here the call to action was getting attention. That is the reason this advertisement became more successful compared to this creative. So this, through artificial intelligence, you can understand in advance. Okay, like when you create the creatives, you can test against artificial intelligence, you can understand, then you can decide, okay, not this but this creative will make more call to action attention and will get more response. That's the reason we can use this particular creative. So that way artificial intelligence can be useful in this particular uh, application which will be used by sales and marketing in an organization which is digital organization or industry 4.0 organization. Okay, so I'll skip through this and then we'll move on to the next part. So we have talked about products, we have talked about customers, and now we will go to the third part, that is engineering or engineers. Okay, for business growth. Right. So what could be those innovations, or what could be those areas? So accelerating innovation and design cycles, okay, through engineering that you can do. So intelligent tools for design and engineering can be applied. Advanced manufacturing technologies can be used for engineering. Okay, so this is a phase where you are creating new product, you are creating new prototypes, you are testing, and you are bringing in new product. Augmented reality to validate early design concepts or shorten idea to market time. So that is the main objective. So how you can shorten idea to market. So when idea comes and the time when that product is in market, this time, how we can reduce using manufacturing 4.0 organization using these technologies. Okay. So for that, there could be potential engineering transformations like reduce idea to market time, better link design to product intelligence, and improve the overall effectiveness of engineering. Right? How we can do that? Like use new technologies like generative design, additive manufacturing to develop new products and eliminate supply chain dependencies during your product development. So you're creating those prototypes using these technologies. You're creating those design options. Okay. Then use data to anticipate design flaws and correct them. So here again, machine learning and AI can be useful in identifying or anticipating or predicting the flaws or in the design. Evaluate design options based on manufacturability. Okay, so that the cycle time can be reduced and cost can be reduced. Improve the overall effectiveness of engineering. So design and test new product using virtual simulation software or this augmented reality or virtual reality. Like some organizations, when they work in the made to design kind of a scenario, when the design is manufactured, then using VR technology, that design is offered to the customers to validate or verify. So it becomes very easy for the customer to visualize and see or imagine how this product would be through the virtual reality wearable and through that technology. So that kind of a innovation will help in effectively bringing a better design, better customer value, and in a very short time. And use crowdsourcing to improve product through innovation, right? So some people, they use multiple organizations, like kind of a design competition is offered, and people design the things, and through that you get better ideas and better, innovations. Okay, so that kind of an approach also some organizations use for bringing in innovation in that engineering activity. Okay, so AI driven product development, how this can happen? So generative design uses synergy of artificial intelligence and CAD, and then it generates multiple design options of a given part based on, like, you have to define the constraints, you have to define the requirements like weight, strength, size. These are examples, material, cost, other constraints, and based on that it generates the options which could be beyond imagination of the designers. Okay, so form follows the function, that is the design philosophy. So here form follows the force, that kind of a philosophy is used, and then it generates multiple options, then designer can choose the best one. So one use case is there, like wherein General Motors experimented with this and they wanted to design a seat belt bracket component. So original part consisted of 8 components. This generative design application using CAD and artificial intelligence generated around 150 alternatives. Okay, and all of them were single piece. Okay, One of the alternatives proved to be 40% lighter, 20% stronger than the original. So it can give you more options which the designer might have never imagined. So that kind of a AI application, even in the product design itself, can be very, very useful, and which can bring in new innovative designs. Right? So we discussed about business growth. We can discuss about business operations, in which the first is the process is planning. Okay, so planning, I mean, essentially is about predicting changes and responding in real time. Okay, so huge role of artificial intelligence in planning, huge role in demand forecast, huge role in of artificial intelligence, because I mean, you have to look into future when you are doing planning. Okay, so demand sensing and planning using sensor signal aggregation, optimization, and prediction, and uncover patterns, track movements, and understand customer needs. What and where, I mean, what is required and where is required. So again, kind of a data analytics using predictions. So what can be potential planning transformations? Okay, demand sensing and planning could be one. Supply planning and supplier transformation across the value chain, two. And outbound network optimization. So first is towards the supplier side, and second is towards the customer side. Okay. So in first, demand sensing and planning, collect and analyze data to persistently monitor demand patterns. So you are keeping tab on that. Okay. So how the demand is trending, how it is changing, how it is moving. Track movements of goods throughout the supply chain for purpose of demand planning. So across the organizations, now as you are connected across your entire value chain, the transparency is there, and you know what is the status at various suppliers or suppliers of your suppliers, and then through that you can predict what can be the position, where you can when you can receive the material, is there any problem, and demand forecast prediction for customer, like what is the demand in the market for the product, that forecast prediction can happen. Then for supply planning and supply transformation, track inventory in the supplier network. So tracking of the inventory, clarity on supplier network capacity and lead times. Here again, as you are seeing through the entire supplier network, you can apply artificial intelligence to predict what could be the status, what could be the expected time of delivery, and pricing predictions with market information. Like multiple material that you need, raw material, like if you need suppose aluminium, so what will happen to the aluminium price, what would be price in February, what will be price in May, what will be price in June, right? That kind of a predictions based on the market information, okay, that you can do, and that helps you in making a decision, like what kind of a stock you need to maintain and what kind of a price, I mean, when to buy, or when to stock, when to not to buy. All that decisions you can make using artificial intelligence. Outbound network optimization can be done. I mean, you can, some activities you can do, like track inventory in forward network, like your dealer's network. Okay, what is the inventory? And based on that, you can decide when to dispatch. Real-time route monitoring and prediction for distribution vehicles. So your distribution vehicles, real-time route monitoring, like they will if something somewhere is problem, they can take another route. So that can be real-time monitoring can be done. Okay. Allow customer to track delivery status with expected time of delivery prediction. So you can have that artificial intelligence so that customer can understand when he can expect the goods. Okay. So I think I wanted to show you one forecast demo, but I will skip that and we'll move ahead. So here, this forecast demo is use of artificial intelligence, where it is forecasting what can be the, I will not run it, maybe I will just show. So the next operations is the factory. There is a creating a link between operation technology and information technology, so that you can intelligent factory smart systems to detect and predict defects during processes. So predictive maintenance, predict QC, utilization of AR sensors, controls variables, industrial IoT, okay, and all these stuffs. So in this, potential factory transformations are enhancing labor productivity, product asset intelligence, and activity synchronization and flow. So I go to the application power building system. Okay. Application of AI in your production process, where like this is an example, like penetration single-sided V-put pipe weld are one of the toughest welds. Okay. The real challenge in automation is because of the joint, which is never repeatable. Okay. Because parameters change for all every piece. So welders are for variation in root openings, weld center, groove volume, handle this. Okay. So this human intelligence can be replaced with AI, and an AI-powered pipe system will work equally efficiently. So I wanted to show one video here how artificial intelligence is using. So because of time as well as connectivity issues, I will not skip video. This it does is the artificial intelligence is root center groove volume through image processing. It understands what, and for that specific setup or that specific piece you are building, it then this parameters, watt meters, so that the X-ray quality best weld point can be achieved, which generally otherwise needed some very highly skilled operators, humans. So there the system is using artificial intelligence for improving the manufacturing process. Predictive maintenance is the other one, wherein the the historically data which is generated in the machine and the historical failures in the machine. This data and then the relationship between them is established so that when the machine is running, the setup is running, that time, whenever that kind of a situation arises, that prediction can happen and system tell you that say after 10 minutes or after 1 hour, this is going to fail. So before that failure happens, you intervene and you can see what is happening and you can correct the things. So the failure is prevented because of the predictive maintenance. The use of AI in the predictive maintenance, which brings in a huge amount of value, and so it was the remaining useful life because the secondary damage because of this specific damage that is also prevented, and the machine life improves and machine performance also improves. Then under 4.0, you can call it as like use of AI in quality. Similar to predictive maintenance, there could be predictive quality. So the machine parameter, the process parameter, and the relationship of that is called historical perspective. That relationship can be established by AI, and at real time it can sense happening and it can predict like the ability may deteriorate 10 minutes, so you can then again adjust the things and call it computer vision based visual use of inspection. It happen at a higher speed and more accuracy compared to human visual inspection. Okay. AI powered robo is another intervention of AI in the factory floor. So human robo collaboration as the can happen. The codes you can code as like they work with the humans, they augment the human ability, and they work. I mean, they do not replace the humans, but they work with humans using AI. Use the power of artificial intelligence. So random bin picking, region-based picking, I wanted to show like a robot is not AI. When it has to pick from the same location. It can pick the object which is kept in the orientation. Then only with AI enabled vision enabled robo sense the orientation of the it can sense the object which is kept in the bin, and then it can pick that by adjusting its end effector so that it can pick the object which is kept randomly in a bin. So that brings in a huge value for that. Okay. So last is the support is the scaling of market operation. Once the product is sold, then root cause analysis and machine learning to identify root cause from historic data, predictive maintenance through connected devices, variables and AR techniques to use maintenance procedures. So remotely you can help the customer to repair the things using reality and augmented reality and connected devices. All this can happen in aftermarket support the customers when it is connected world using all these technologies. Okay, so the potential transformations could be aiding activity and quality repair, predicting the failure, the action, and it could be responding in a timely, accurate, and effective manner. Again, cognitive or conversational used there for implementing multiple channels, opening multiple online channels for communication. Right. Thanks a lot for patiently listening to my thoughts on the role of AI in artificial this industry 4.0, and I apologize for thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir, for an exquisite session. We will move on to the Q&A session now. There are many questions posted by the participants. Due to shortage of time, we will be covering only few questions, and the other questions can be covered up on the day 3 during the panel discussion. So the first category of questions is regarding how can we include Industry 4.0 in the academics. Mr. Rajendra Gaike has asked the question that what could be the courses that could be included in the curriculum of the students, and also how students will be benefited by Industry 4.0. I think sir is facing some technical difficulties. Kindly excuse us for the technical difficulties that we are encountering. The next session will be at 1:45, so I request all the participants to be on time, and we will take up the question answer session during the third day of the panel discussion. I would like to thank Professor Mr. Suresh Sakkarwar sir for his time and accepting our invitation for being a part of this event. The session has thoroughly taken us deep into the connect between artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0. I'm sure that the participants have rejoiced the session, and the takeaways would mend the ways for meeting challenges and converting them into opportunities in the area of Industry 4.0. Thank you very much, sir. So this is the end of session 1 for day 1. Thank you all the participants for joining us. The feedback link for day 1 will be shared on Telegram app, and they will remain active till today 6 p.m. So all the participants are requested to fill up the feedback link till 6 p.m. today. We will begin the next session, the session 2 of day 1, by Professor Aseem Tiwari from IIT Bombay. All of you are requested to join back at 1:45. So we will begin the session at 1:45, and the link of that session has been already shared on your email IDs, and it is also available on the Telegram app. Thank you very much.
MIT Group of Academic and Research Institutions announces admission in engineering and management with 40 years in technical education, over 12,000 plus students, best placement cell and best infrastructure. Beed Bypass, Aurangabad.